I was 10 minutes into my presentation when I saw it, his face. From the corner of the conference room, I caught the CEO's gaze, cold and unreadable, sweeping the rows of faces before landing squarely on me. My heart skipped, but I pressed on, clicking through slide after slide of projections and campaign results I'd spent the last 6 months perfecting. Then, with a single nod to HR's regional director, Arthur Calhoun called my name. "Miss Reyes," he said, voice smooth as glass. "If you could step outside, please." A ripple of confusion passed among my colleagues. I swallowed hard, kept my smile plastered in place, and closed my laptop. I gathered my notes calmly, wondering if I'd flubbed something major typo in the headline test, mistimed Q4 forecast, but no one else looked panicked. They kept watching. Arthur rose from behind the lectern, framed against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, his empire, a $500 million marketing division that I'd helped double in revenue over 2 years. In front of the team, he called, "Now." My palms stung with sweat as I stood, walked the few steps to the door, and opened it. The hallway's fluorescent glare felt like a spotlight. I turned back, saw every pair of eyes fixed on me, and heard a faint gasp. My mentor, Victor, in product, stared as if I were hallucinating. My own team, assembled to hear my roadmap, reconfigured at the edges, searching for answers. No one moved to follow me. I managed a nod of farewell, clipped the door shut behind me, and leaned against it. My chest thundered. What the hell was happening? 15 seconds later, Arkansas buzzed on my phone. "Please return badge and laptop to security." That nearly broke me, but I forced a breath. I was still in the building, minutes away from my desk, from my second monitor, from the half-finalized prototype code I'd buried under personal projects. I walked to security on autopilot, handed over my badge, no dignified, "I'm off to new adventures," no handshake. The guard barely glanced up. "Have a nice day," he said, scanning my card. "Take the elevator down." The lobby was cavernous, empty. I stepped out into the morning sun, blinking. Phone in hand, I texted my assistant, "Call me when you can. Urgent." 10 minutes later, her trembling voice on the line, They said you're terminated. Effective immediately. No severance, no discussion." "I'm so sorry," the world pitched. "No severance." I'd been loyal, late nights, weekends, global launches, and the quarterly bonus cycle, they'd cut it off at my termination date. My bank account would be fine for 6 weeks. But my pride shredded, I slumped over to the coffee shop across the street, ordered a venti Americano, and stared at the steam curling in the cup. "You've got to be kidding." I replayed the morning. My Q1 plan had been bold, launching a self-serve AI toolkit to let mid-market clients customize ad campaigns without heavy agency fees. We'd tested it internally. The UX was slick, cost per acquisition down 15%. It was my idea, pitched and funded by Arthur himself 6 months ago. But somewhere along the way, politics intervened. Arthur's favorite nephew, fresh out of business school, had taken over the AI project. I'd discovered code repos, forked under nephew's user ID. Features I built were now branded his. Reports I wrote were presented as his work. I'd resisted, argued for credit, but Arthur brushed me off. "This is family, Emily. We handle things differently here." So that was it. Family over merit. Today's show of force in front of the department was the final insult. They wanted him to look good to the board in a week. My removal was the brass ring. But he'd made one critical mistake. He didn't realize that the prototype I'd built as my personal side venture, a full SaaS version of that AI toolkit with enterprise bells and whistles, was ready for beta. I'd tucked it away, running on my own cloud instance, under NDA, with 2 small pilot customers who'd signed months ago. All the source, the ML models, the workflow engine, it was mine, seeded before I ever joined the company. I chuckled, black coffee burning my throat. He thought he'd erased me. Instead, he'd freed my hands. By noon, I drafted an email to my pilot clients. "Heeks, Farteens. Beta is live. Credentials below." I hit send. Within minutes, they began logging in, sending delighted feedback. "This is exactly what we need," wrote one. "Let's scale up," wrote another. My phone vibrated, a LinkedIn recruiter ping. "Heeks, saw your profile. Can we talk about a head of growth role?" I deleted it. Growth? I had growth under my thumb. My own startup, revenue pipeline humming, clients waiting. By 3 p.m., I'd incorporated our new company, Atlas II Inc. I'd lined up my co-founder, a brilliant dev I'd mentored at my old job, and we'd sketched out pricing tiers, roadmaps, investor slides. Our growth plan was to onboard 10 mid-market clients by Q3, scale to 100 by Q1. Arthur's division, they were still wrestling with buggy code, Nephew's half-baked API, and internal blame games. Meanwhile, Atlas I was live, revenue flowing straight into our Stripe account. At 5 p.m., I packed my laptop, left the coffee shop, and walked to the subway. My phone lit up with Slack pings, beta testers celebrating. I raised a grin to the screen, my team of 2 already more productive than Arthur's 100. I looked up, dusk alight in the skyline. Under streetlights, I felt light as air. He'd told me to leave in front of everyone, thinking he'd locked me out. But he forgot, I was building what would replace him. And at dawn tomorrow, another mid-market exec would log into Atlas I and launch a campaign that would siphon dollars straight from his budget. I stepped onto the train, doors sliding shut behind me, and texted my co-founder, Phase 1 Live. And in the darkest corner of his office, somewhere past the tinted windows, I imagined Arthur's gaze flickering to our old dashboard, where once my data had glowed green. Now it would flicker empty, while Atlas I's numbers climbed steady and bright. That evening, I sat in the corner of my tiny apartment, the lights of the city flickering beyond the window. I opened the laptop, poured another coffee, and stared at our live analytics dashboard, Atlas I's heartbeat. Every API call, every ad served, every dollar spent was logged in real time, proof that our fledgling platform was already humming. I dialed my co-founder, Marcus. Phase 1 is live, I whispered. He puffed a celebratory breath on the line. Dash shows 5 clients on board, 10 campaigns launched, 0 errors. His voice was thick with excitement. We make payroll this week. I smiled, though he couldn't see me. Next step, automate the onboarding flow. Free up my time. I jotted notes, template wizards, self-service tutorials, API keys delivered via Slack. The efficiency would be our moat. Meanwhile, across town, Arthur pressed his nephew into a late-night debugging session. The nephew, fresh in his cubicle, faced twirling loading icons and cryptic Python traces. His calls to IT yielded only working on it rehearsals. In the morning, the VP of Sales, an old friend of mine, would step into Arthur's office and deliver the blow. Atlas I's ROI is 25% higher than your division's pilot results. The board wants to reallocate the mid-market budget, and Arthur would grind his teeth. But that was tomorrow. For now, I had a product to refine. By midnight, I merged the first patch, an automated performance summary email that parsed campaign KPIs and recommended budget shifts. Clients logging in the next day would wake to suggestions, shift 30% of display budget to mobile video for 8 a.m., 10 a.m. slots, or pause audience segment X. Saturation detected. I shut the laptop at 2 a.m., sleep chasing me as I collapsed onto my futon. I dreamed of green dashboards and Arthur's frown. I woke to my phone buzzing. It was 7:45 a.m., way too early to feel enthusiastic. Still, I dragged myself upright and blinked at the message. VP Sales, congrats, Atlas I. Just presented your Q2 ROI to the board. Budget shifting underway. Well played. My heart leapt. The first major victory for Atlas I, we'd outmaneuvered my former boss and his empire. I texted back, thanks, keep me posted on rollout. Then I sent a quick status update in Slack. Team, get ready for budget wave #1. Automate alert at $10K spend. Deploy safety nets. After breakfast, I hopped on a Zoom call with my 5-person support team, 3 developers, 1 product designer, and Marcus as COO. We refined the alert thresholds, tightened rate limits, and queued an architecture review to handle the incoming traffic spike. The first wave of budget reallocation would hit mid-morning. At 10 o'clock, I logged into the client management portal. Sure enough, campaign spend across several formerly dormant accounts surged. Red bars on the performance heat map lit up as new impressions fired. Atlas I's algos automatically rebalanced bids to maximize conversions. Cash was flowing in. I watched our Stripe dashboard tick upward in real time. 3 figures, then 4. I opened a group chat with our investors. Live budget shift by mid-market team. Performance at plus 18% versus previous baseline. Bridge call at 2 p.m. Answers flashed, congrats, see you there. One VC even replied, have a champagne bottle ready. My phone buzzed again, a private DM on LinkedIn from the VP of marketing. At a major competitor, I heard about your success. You free for call? Might explore partnership. I grinned. Partnership, not poaching. I'd built something that attracted industry attention. Back at my old headquarters, Arthur sat in the chair I once occupied, staring at his division's internal dashboard. Two bright red warnings signaled performance far below forecast, CPA spiking, ad engagement dipping. His nephew's face on his phone wallpaper twisted into a frown as he tapped his own inbound messages. Board says we missed projections by 12%. Explain what happened. Arthur snatched the phone and dialed I. No solace there. He pivoted to his calendar, a 9 a.m. board meeting in 15 minutes. He needed answers he didn't have. At the boardroom table, marble, oak, and a vista of skyscrapers, I clicked join on my laptop. The familiar faces of my former colleagues stared back, the CFO, the board chair, a handful of VPs and senior directors. Arthur, looking strained but resolute, cleared his throat. Thank you for joining on short notice, Miss Reyes, the board chair said. We have a crisis to address. I nodded through the pixelated grid. I understand mid-market spend has underperformed. I tapped to my presentation slide titled Q2 Mid-Market Campaign Performance Analysis. My name still appeared on the deck. Small victories count. As I launched into data, side-by-side ROI comparisons of Atlas AI versus in-house efforts, the room grew quiet. I walked them through click-through rates, conversion lifts, attribution models. By the end, the CFO was nodding, the COO furrowing his brow, Arthur's jaw tight. The board chair closed her notebook. It seems clear we have a decision. We can continue to prop up an underperforming internal system, or we can pivot budget to Atlas AI. Interim solution, we retain a scaled pilot contract with Atlas AI while we phase out PPT-based campaign control. She looked at Arthur. Obviously, transition support from Miss Reyes will be critical. Arthur's shoulders slumped. He met my eyes. No anger, only resignation. Ellen, he said, voice low. You'll need to lead the transition. I tilted my head, giving the barest hint of a smile. That was the one thing he couldn't avoid me in the room, guiding the execution. I took a deep breath. Of course, I replied, voice steady. I'll prepare the handover plan by end of day. A week later, I was back in the very office I'd vacated. The badge on my lanyard read consultant, not VP, but I savored the moment as I walked past the familiar glass walls. My former team clustered ahead, a mixture of relief and awkwardness in their eyes. Arthur gave me a curt nod and returned to his desk, where the nephew hovered with an Excel sheet full of error logs. I set up in the war room, whiteboard markers at the ready, and began a 3-day sprint, training sessions for campaign managers, DevOps checklists for IT, updated process docs for compliance. Each session ended with applause, genuine grateful applause. I sat back on a rolling chair once, eyes closed, listening to the chatter. This makes so much sense. Why didn't we do this sooner? Ellen, you're a genius. On day 3, as lunch orders rustled in the background, I sealed the deal. The board had approved a 3-year partnership, 5-year roadmap, and a budget 40% higher than the in-house allocation. Atlas AI would become the division's backbone. In exchange, my consulting contract extended through the end of fiscal 2026 at double my original rate. Arthur entered the room, tentative. Ellen, thank you. This is remarkable. He offered a handshake. I paused, eyed his nephew, who hovered like a shadow. Finally, I shook Arthur's hand. It's just the beginning, I said, voice calm. We have work to do. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, laptop open to our Atlas AI dashboard, logs streaming in, revenue pulses glowing. My phone pinged, a text from Victor, now at a rival consultancy. Heard you pulled off a miracle. Drinks Tuesday? I smiled. Tuesday. Victory drinks. I leaned back, hands behind my head, and let exhaustion settle into a comfortable ache. I'd been told to leave in front of everyone, but I'd never really left. I'd built what would replace him, step by step, line by line of code, strategy meeting by negotiation. And now I had a seat at the table again, but this time on my own terms. Tomorrow I'd launch a new feature, full funnel sentiment analysis, powered by social listening. But tonight I closed my eyes on one truth. He'd forgotten that the real power lay not in the corner office, but in the expertise and vision behind it, and that was something no command could revoke. And as the city lights pulsed beyond my window, I drifted to sleep with a satisfied smile, knowing the revolution I'd begun would outlast any corporate decree.